buenas tardes. El Comité Ejecutivo de la Unión Matemática de Latinoamérica y el Caribe y el Comité Científico del V Congreso Latinoamericano de Matemáticos, reconociendo la importancia que tienen los temas relacionados con la equidad de género, ha decidido apoyar la iniciativa denominada Mujeres Matemáticas en Latinoamérica, liderada por las profesoras Alicia Dickenstein, Carolina Neira y Eddie Pariwan. Esta iniciativa tiene por objetivo establecer una red de mujeres que trabajen en las ciencias matemáticas en la región, con el fin de desarrollar material y actividades para incentivar y apoyar a mujeres en sus carreras como matemáticas. Como parte de esta iniciativa, tendremos a continuación un foro titulado Mujeres Matemáticas en Latinoamérica, donde participarán las profesoras Cristina Brecht, doctora en matemáticas y profesora asistente de la Universidad de Sao Paulo, María Isabel Cortés, doctora en matemáticas y profesora asociada de la Universidad de Santiago de Chile, Natalia García Colín, doctora en matemáticas y profesora de la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, y Susana Fiorentino, doctora en Inmunología y profesora titular de la Pontificia Universidad Javeriana de Bogotá. Este acto será presidido por la profesora Alicia Dickenstein de la Universidad de Buenos Aires y actualmente vicepresidente de la Unión Matemática Internacional. A continuación, le cedemos la palabra a la profesora Alicia Dickenstein.
Muchas gracias. I hope that you can hear me. So first of all, I would like to thank all of you who are here. And I would really like to thank Bernardo Uribe. He was really the person who had the idea of this necessary meeting, I think. And at the very end, we will ask for a really applause for Bernardo. You really, also for the organization of this great conference. But coming back to our subject today, so just I will say 2 words about myself. So I never really took care of gender issues until very recently. And I started realizing that things are not exactly as we see them. It's very subtle, not because of what's called the unconscious bias, but also about the structure of our society that produces many invisible biases, but that are really there. So we will try to listen to youth, this would be the richest part of this, because the aim, as we say, is to get a network out of these initiatives. But with 1 hour, we won't have much time. So we had a basic old idea of there will be some white pages if you want to write down your email so that we can contact you with information, or if you can send comments or whatever. There will be very old-fashioned white pages for those who want to leave their emails. We created this, it's an alias. In fact, it's Mujeres Matemáticas in Latinoamérica. This will reach the group of people who will be in charge of all these future activities. And there is a Facebook group, which is a little bit more modern. Just we start with ancient, Middle Age, and maybe just also it's a little bit the past, but we have this, but what you see there is not correct. The precise number is Mujeres Matemáticas en Latinoamérica, all spelled out, but this will appear in the transparencies in a short while. So, okay, so we have a fantastic panel today. I think it will be very rich and very interesting. So the first speaker is Cristina Brecht. How do you pronounce it? Brecht. She's a professor at the University of Sao Paulo, the Instituto de Matemática, IMI. Since 2010, she made a thesis joined between University of Sao Paulo and Paris 7. Yeah, I made it. And she works on applications of set theory to the geometry of Banach spaces. She participates of a group called Mujeres do IMI, women from the Mathematical Institute, that they discuss the prejudice that face women in their institute, and they also She's also part of a network called Ready Now Cala de la USP. So this means that they don't be silent. And they take care of cases of harassment and this kind of unwanted issues. And she also co-organized the first meeting of women from the state of Sao Paulo working in mathematics in March 2016. And I would like to ask a question to Cristina, just to start the discussion. And so this is, my first question is, which are the main problems that women face along their mathematical careers?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Alicia. I would like to thank Carolina and Eddie for organizing this forum. So before answering Alicia's question, maybe I would like to present the Brazilian data I managed to collect. So first of all, it was not very easy to collect some data about Brazilian women in mathematics. Here we have this graphic with the percentage of women in the undergraduate courses. So undergraduate students and undergraduate professors attached to math department. This concerns only the national system of universities in Brazil. And it's separated. I think we cannot see what are the differences, right? So the green and yellow concern courses which are exclusively for math teaching courses, so preparing people to teach mathematics at high school. And the blue and red ones concern the other courses, which are separated in Brazil sometimes, or together in other times, and whenever the two are just one course, then it's in the second option, so blue and red lines. It's clear that there are more women in teaching than in the other courses, but numbers are between 30 and 40 or 40 and 50 more or less. For undergraduate students. And the other graphic, this is concerning the scholarships and grants from CNPq. So the percentage of funding received by women mathematicians in Brazil along all these years. And it's, as we see, the undergraduate, master's, and PhD scholarships seem to be decreasing, but it's, I mean, and it's also interesting that they are all the same at the end, right? This is the most recent data we have. We don't have from 2014 or 15. And the research grants, which is the Produtividade em Pesquisa, is between 10 and 12%. So I don't have more data because it wasn't easy to get them, and actually I prepared myself almost by hand these graphs. So, okay, so now concerning problems that women face along their career in mathematics. First of all, I would like to say that, well, problems are very diverse from different kinds. Many of them related to the role women are attributed by the society. So I think math community is just part of the society. So many of the biases we find in general, we also find in the math community. Also, some of the issues are not exclusive to women. I think there are other people who might feel find the same problems. But what I think at most is that the fact that we are so few in the community somehow potentializes, so the problems get bigger for us because we are so few. So, and this generates, of course, a vicious circle, because then we don't feel, it makes math environment like a hostile environment sometimes for us. And therefore, many women don't start studying mathematics or start studying and leave, or even, later they leave the career. They don't progress as much as men in the career. They, so let me see. Also, as Alicia said already, I think many people don't notice sometimes that they are committing that they have prejudices or they are being unfair. And so this is why it is important to talk about these problems, I think, as we are doing here. And I would like to thank the scientific committee and the committee of UMALCA for giving us this plenary time to speak. So just to mention, as I said, most of them are related to what we find in the society. So there is sexual violence. In this group of professors at São Paulo, we have some cases. It's not only concerning about math communities, the whole university, but there is sexual violence, harassment, so sexism. Then later in the career, there are problems like related to the maternity, to housekeeping, which is still most done by women, childcare. The two-body problem, when a couple wants to move, usually it's the woman who gives up her career or accompanies her husband in his career. And then I think because we are so few, there is a lack of role models, so it's more difficult to younger women, students, or even young women in the career to identify themselves with prominent mathematicians, because there are few women occupying this position. So fewer, right? Maybe not few is the word, but fewer at least. Also invisibility, right? I have the impression that women are forgot sometimes when we are trying to make list of invited speakers. There is lack of recognition also, so women with co-authors, male co-authors which are less recognized than their co-authors. Concerning invisibility, I think this is one of the problems which we can attack. It makes us feel very lonely, I think, the fact that we are few women. And so when you see other women, this helps a lot. I had this experience when organizing the conference in São Paulo in March, which was a very interesting experience. I won't go too much into solutions. I guess my colleagues will speak about them. But I would just like to mention that I think we have to think about solutions all over the career. So when child are studying, right, when they are at school, later during undergraduate studies, doing graduate studies, and later, because I think it's all over the career that women are abandoning the career. I think this is what I wanted to say. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we move to our, I need to change my glasses. Sorry. Move to our second speaker. She's Natalia Garcia Colin. She's got a PhD in mathematics at the University College in London and UK. She worked in the finance industry between 2007 and 2010 as a quant analyst in the UK. And then from 2010 on, she went back to academic work as a postdoc researcher in the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. Since 2014, she's a CONACYT researcher in the Center of Research and Innovation in Technologies of Information and Communication. And her areas of research include geometry and combinatorial geometry and topology, graph theory, analysis and, and quantitative modeling of actives and financial derivatives, and more recently, topological analysis of data. Since 2013, she belongs to the Comisión de Equidad y Género de la Sociedad Matemática Mexicana, Commission for Equity and Gender. And since beginning of 2015, she's vice president of the Mexican Mathematical Society. So I would like to ask her which are the precise policies and actions taken by the governments and institutions in the region to solve this gender gap.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Eddie and Bernardo and the organizing committee for this wonderful conference and the opportunity to speak to you. Also, thanks to Alicia for the nice presentation. Okay, so first, just as before, I will present some data about the inclusion of women in Mexico. So the first slide that I have here is about enrollment in undergraduate level. So I have just like discrete data for 1994, 2004, and 2014. So you can see there, like the proportion of women has kind of increased in the past few years, but the enrollment in mathematics degrees has also increased a lot. Right? From 2004 to 2014, you can see a big bump in enrollment in mathematics courses. So this is basically pure mathematics, applied mathematics, and mathematical education. So it's like 3 different degrees in all over the country. We have these degrees in like about 50 universities, something like that. So those are the numbers for undergraduate level. For master's levels, unfortunately, I do not have the precise numbers of enrollment, but I do have the proportions in 2004 and 2014. So for masters in mathematics, this includes pure mathematics, applied mathematics, and mathematical education again. So in 2014, we had 24% women and the rest men. And in 2014, we had 41% women. So, clearly, we're walking towards 50-50, right? Okay. So for the PhD, things changed quite a lot. So here again, I have enrollment data for applied mathematics and pure mathematics. I do not think we include here mathematical education. It's difficult to tell in this particular data because there was a change of paradigm on how they measure. So they might vary slightly, but the data is roughly like this. So 24% in 2004, 30% in 2013. So that's as for studying level, right? So in my next slide, I will deal with academic positions. So in Mexico, basically, there are like 3 types of universities where people can, do research or teach mathematics. So we have the research centers where academics mostly do research and teach a few courses. Then you have the universities in Mexico City who have had a lot of support from the government for decades, so they're like quite reputable, but there you still have 2 different types of positions, like research positions and non-research positions. And in the rest of the country, it's mostly non-research positions, right? So mostly people have to teach a lot of courses, like sometimes 5 hours per day or something like that. So they have a huge teaching load. So that's why we are splitting the data into these 3 different categories. So for research centers, we have 20% women. For institutions in Mexico City, we have 28%. And for institutions outside Mexico City, we have 26%, right? So it's easy to note that in research positions, we have much less mathematicians serving in an academic position, right? And finally, this is the data for the National System of Researchers, which is an institution in Mexico that exists to promote research. So once you have an academic position, you can enroll to this National System of Researchers and receive a monthly stipend to promote research, and you have to publish every year in order to keep this National System of Researchers stipend. And so it's divided in levels. So the entry level is C, and as your career progresses, you can apply to increase your level, and with the increase in levels, it comes like an increase in the monetary stipend. And so you have the entry level is C, and then it goes from 1 to 2 to 3, and then there's some emeritus naming for which I do not have data, right? So in level C, we have 24% in level women. In level 1, we have 21%. In level 2, we have 17%, and in level 3, we have 6%. And I would just like to remark that the total number of researchers in mathematics in Mexico is 856 as per 2015. So that what that actually means is that for level 3, we only have 6 women in the country who have this level, right? So it's not very much indeed. Well, we hope that some of the ones who are at level 2 soon will become level 3, but this is the actual data. So it's very clear that, as far as undergraduate degree, we're doing well, master's degree, we're doing well, PhD is not so well, and at academic position level, it's very obvious that, we are far away from parity, right? Okay, so this is, and this last data is for 2015. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the data for the time series, but the data does exist, and I will try to get it. Okay, and then regarding the question that Alicia made, I'll go very fast because I wanted to start from the UN. So the UN has these Sustainable Development Goals, and if you see the 5th goal is gender equality in all areas of life. So this is a priority for the UN in their Plan 2030. You can find this information in the UN's webpage, right? So goal number 5, it's split into very different targets, 6 of them, but they are written very small. But I think the ones that concern academia the most are the following 2. So you have 5C, that says that promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls at all levels. And 5.5, which is to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels, right? So UN has this as a target, and what does it do? Well, then it goes to, UNESCO and tells them, well, have some money, and you have to develop a program to include women in all different areas of society, right? So UNESCO published this paper called Gender Equality, a Global Priority, and in particular, they do say that science cannot continue to deprive itself of the full scientific potential of over half of the planet's population. So inclusion of women in science is a priority for UNESCO as well. And it's written in that paper, which is a very interesting paper. You can also find it in the UNESCO's website, right? And there in UNESCO's website, you have this gender and science website. And, in particular, there is a priority on including women, not only in science, but in STEM subjects, right? So, which is like mathematics, physics, engineering, technology, etc., right? So there's not only an emphasis to include women in science, but particularly reaching gender equality in STEM subjects. Okay, so UNESCO has 5 different programs for achieving this. In particular, I want to point out this program for strengthening networks of women scientists all over the world. And then I arrived to the local part of this. So there's an organization for women in science in developing countries. So this is an organization that doesn't depend on UNESCO and gathers women scientists in the region. You can register to belong to this organization. And it works with support from UNESCO. And it has different programs. Most of its programs happen in Africa, but there's some working in Latin America. In particular, one of the things they do is, I want to point out perhaps the right-hand side, which they give training courses in writing and presenting papers, in presenting posters. They teach how to communicate complex research to different audiences, like both conferences specialized like this, or maybe you are talking to the press or something like that. So they do training for women in the beginning of their careers to learn to do this more effectively. And in particular, our representative in that organization is Mayra de la Torre, who is a biochemist in a university in the north of Mexico. So that's her. She's very good. You can contact her. She is very friendly. And you can join the OWSD. So that's one of the organizations I wanted to talk to you. There's also IANAS, which is the Inter-American Network of Academic Sciences, and they do also have a program for women in science. They work closely with the OWSD, doing courses and these sorts of things and promoting networks of women. And the representative from Mexico is Liliana Margarita Alvarez, which I know personally. And she's also very friendly, so you can send her proposals and things of the like. I don't know. Yeah, I think we can split this. Finally, I want to talk about the Committee for Women in Mathematics, which was created in Korea very recently. And they also promote networks of women in mathematics, and actually they provided some support for this meeting to happen. And then I'm not going to mention much more of that, but for example, there's Association for Women in Mathematics in the US and European Association for Women in Mathematics. So it's time that there should be an association for women in mathematics in Latin America, right? And these countries are countries that have local associations for women in mathematics. And there's a lot of more organizations promoting the inclusion of women in mathematics and in science as a whole, but I don't want to mention them all. I'll just say that if you can go to UNESCO's page and find the SAGA program, it's very interesting and they have some money. So if you're interested in like getting money for promoting the inclusion of women, that's the place to go. You have another organization that it's called WISAT for Global Women in Global Science and Technology. And finally, the Inter-American Development Bank also has some funds to organize events and promote the inclusion for women in mathematics. So if you have an event or so on, that's another place to go to. And I think that's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you. Oh, yes. So, right. So I just said that it was time that there was a committee for women in mathematics, and I'm pretty pleased to say that yesterday in the assembly of the UMALCA, we decided to have such a committee. So yesterday, by general vote of the assembly of UMALCA, we will have a committee. It will have a very long name, but it's essentially a committee to study the way in which we can promote the career of women in mathematics in Latin America. And the next executive president and the executive committee of UMALCA will decide, some people who will be included at first and which are going to be our goals as a committee. Now, thank you.
Ingeniera civil matemática. She got her PhD in 2005 in mathematics. Again, was a joint direction between the Universidad de Chile and the Université de Bourgogne in France. And her area of research is dynamical systems. And just a note of color, she's the only female participant in her session, but she didn't write this in this presentation. Since 2006, she worked as an academic in the Department of Mathematics in the Universidad de Santiago de Chile. And since a year from now, she is part of a network in gender issues from the same university. With a group of colleagues, she created what's at the end of 2014, what's called the Colectivo de Mujeres Matemáticas en Chile. It's a group for women mathematicians in Chile. She says that there is not a single reason to justify why this group was formed, and all the different people who integrate this group have different motivations. Her own motivation is not just that she's worried about the number of women who decide to pursue a career oriented to mathematics, which is really low, but also she is worried about those women who are already in a mathematical career. They face many difficulties, and how can we find ways to help them? And in general, this is living in much loneliness. So last year, interestingly, she started to study something about gender studies in the School of Philosophy and Humanities of the University of Chile. And and what she got from there is that life experience is crucial. It's not enough to get statistics about men and women. It's also important to understand the dynamics that are beyond or behind these figures. So what she's going to talk about today is part of the work project. She has ongoing work project with a colleague who is a sociologue, Jan Hersant, of the Universidad de Playa Ancha in Chile. And the aim is to identify the particularities of the academic trajectories of women who do mathematics in Chile. Well, long presentation, but very interesting.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the invitation. So I'm going to start presenting some data that we collect with Jean Hersan. So she's a sociologist, a French sociologist who worked in Valparaíso in Chile. And so the data that we collect, the samples are 11 departments in Chile, Department of Mathematics, 4 in Santiago, 4 departments in Valparaíso. One of these departments is a half in Santiago too, and 3 departments in the south of Chile. So in this 11 department, you have the most of people working in mathematics in Chile. So the first thing that we can say here, so here you have a distribution of women and men working in mathematics, faculties in mathematics, part-time professor, full-time professors, people with PhD, without PhD. And if you collect all this data, you have this graphic. So more or less 23% of faculties in the math department are women, 77% are men. Now, what happened if you want to try to figure out what happened in the research? So here we have all people that declare to be a researcher, and we distribute these people using the classification that use the Fondesit grant in Chile. The Fondesit is the organism that gives you the money to do your research. These are the basic grant in Chile. And these areas are number theory, algebra, geometry, dynamical system, discrete mathematics, analysis, numerical analysis, probability and statistics, applied math, and math education. And here, I'm going to show you another graph. Here we have the proportion of women by discipline. And here I group number theory, algebra, and geometry in one part of the graph. So 30% of women are there. In math education, we have 26% of women, and in the other field, the 44%. Why we group this graph like this? What I put attention on number theory, algebra, and geometry. So there is a reason for that I would like to mention. There is a French sociologist, Bernard Sarka. He's retired now, and one of the interests of this sociologist was to study the mathematical community. So, in particular, the French mathematical community, and he has a couple of papers about this. And in one of these papers, he, by means of interviews and questionnaires, he discovered that at least in the French mathematical community, there is a kind of hierarchy among the disciplines. So he described a kind of scale of prestige, and the disciplines which are in the top of this scale of prestige are the more abstract disciplines like algebraic geometry and number theory. And at the bottom, you have the applied math and some disciplines that some people describe as part of mathematics and other people describe as not part of mathematics, like statistics or math education. And he discovered that most of the women working in mathematics in France were in the less prestigious disciplines, so in applied math. So this is why we try to group the discipline in that way here. In Chile, it seems that this is different because among the women, you have that 30% of women are in this abstract discipline. In the case of men, this is different. You have just 21% of men working in that disciplines, but you have just 5% of men working in math education. And I suppose, or I don't know, I think that there is some reason that why you have this distribution of women here. And maybe a reason, so maybe a theory, could be that in Chile, in the department where people develop, where the disciplines like analysis or math applied are developed, these departments are in engineering faculties. And in Chile, most of women start to study in the Department of Mathematics in the Faculty of Science and not in the department, not in the Faculty of Engineering. So maybe this is the reason why you have 30% of women working in number theory, algebra, and geometry, because the most of the women start their studies in the math department belonging to the Faculty of Science. And here there is a distribution of the Fondesit grant from 2013 to 2016. This Fondesit grant, when you have a Fondesit grant, you have this for 3 or 4 years. So this is more or less the picture of the Fondesit grant that people hold now. And here you see that among all these Fondesit grants, 14% are for women, so very few, 86% for men. And just the next graphic to try to compare the distribution of researchers with the distribution of the Fondesit project, and they are more or less the same. So maybe the women that candidate, so the women that obtain projects, the proportion of women that obtain the project are more or less the same that the proportion of men that obtain the Fondesit grant. And this is about the data, and I would like to finish showing something that we start to organize from 2014, as Alicia mentioned. This, with a group of mathematical women working in Chile, after Korea, after the International Congress of Women Mathematicians, we decided to create some group, because we realized that there are a lot of things that you need to do in Chile, and some of the things are very subtle. So we realized that the first thing that you have to do is to try to talk about these issues, because for most of the people these are not obvious, and if you don't start to talk about this, maybe you will not realize that these issues exist. And with this group of colleagues, one of these colleagues is here in the audience, Mariel. Here is a picture about some of the members of the group. And we start to organize some activities like talks in the schools where we talk about women mathematicians. We try to tell the students about our work in the spirit to try to show them that there are many people working in mathematics and that these people could be different one of each other. We gave some radio interviews in the radios of the universities, trying to put this subject to the audience, some articles, and some round tables that I think these are the most interesting activities that we organize, because when you organize these kind of activities, there are a lot of people that they don't think about this problem in general, and when you start to talk about this is the first time that they are, maybe these are the first time that they start to listen about this. And okay, that's all.
Thank you very much. So our last speaker is not a mathematician, but she's a very important scientist. She works in immunology. She's a full professor at the Universidad Javeriana in Bogotá. She has a PhD in immunology from Paris 7. And she directs the immunology group there, and she created an immunology society and many others, as I learned over lunch. Her very active research area is centered around cancer and natural products that can help heal cancer. She is also vice president of the Colombian Network of Female Scientists. So I would like to ask Susana the following. So when considering the future creation of networks or associations for women in mathematics in Latin America? Should these organizations be independent of the existing associations? Should be part of them?
Okay, thank you, Alicia, and thank you. I want to thank Cedi for the invitation. I feel like Da Vivienda, we say it in Colombia, like in the wrong place. So I am el oso de ojos negros, ¿cierto? La única que no es matemática en este sitio. And I will be more different because I'm not going to do my speech in English because I spent the half of my life in Paris. I am Colombian and French researcher. So I have the quality to have a very bad English as the French people. It don't seem, but so I hope that the most of you speak Spanish, the majority of yours speak Spanish, because this is one of the subjects that really I found 1 year ago, only 1 year ago, because siempre viví una vida científica maravillosa, rodeada de hombres maravillosos y de 2 hijas maravillosas, y nunca me di cuenta que habían diferencias entre los hombres y las mujeres. Solo hasta que comencé a trabajar en un grupo, soy directora de un grupo hace muchos años, en el cual el 90% son mujeres. So the 90% of my researchers in my lab are women. That is so nice. But the hormones are terrible. So working with women all the time es muy difícil. Esto me llevó a pensar que finalmente la equidad en la sociedad y el reconocimiento del yo, ¿cierto? El reconocimiento de que los hombres y las mujeres somos diferentes es muy importante. Y no es la reivindicación de la mujer como la lucha que se vivió en Francia, que yo creo que es la peor lucha que han podido hacer las mujeres, la liberación femenina que nos ha llevado a muchas cosas maravillosas, pero nos ha llevado a perder otras que son aún más maravillosas. Y es el hecho de reconocernos como mujeres y de que los hombres nos reconozcan como mujeres y reconocer a los hombres como nuestros pares. Como no soy matemática, pero tengo una hija estudiando matemática, entonces conozco un poco el pensamiento de los matemáticos. Y como decía mi colega hace poco, pues yo trabajo en una ciencia que no es tan noble, porque no es tan básica. Pero yo creo que parte de las diferencias que nos han llevado a trabajar en proyectos como estos es el querer tener una sociedad que es elitista aún desde el conocimiento. Y el conocimiento no es elitista, es decir, trabajar en ciencia básica versus ciencia aplicada, trabajar en matemáticas versus inmunología molecular o cáncer, finalmente nos lleva a todos a reconocer una sociedad que quiere vivir mejor. O sea, nosotros somos científicos porque todos estamos tratando de entender cómo funciona el mundo y cómo entenderlo para nuestros hijos y para nuestros nietos, porque nosotros nos morimos mañana. Entonces, me llamaron a ser parte de la Red Colombiana de Mujeres Científicas y me pareció interesante y vengo a presentárselas. La red realmente lo que quiere es un poco resaltar pues lo que ya hemos hablado, ¿cierto? La falta de presencia de las mujeres, sobre todo en las carreras STEM, física, matemáticas, química, etcétera, pero también en otras ciencias. Y además el entender que el problema existe, el problema tan existe que se ha creado el Día Internacional de las Mujeres y de las Niñas en la Ciencia, porque llamar a las niñas a trabajar en las ciencias STEM y a estudiar las STEM, matemáticas, física, química, hace que podamos transformar el mundo y que el mundo sea mucho más amable y que podamos vivir, digamos, cada uno aportando desde su horizonte cerebral izquierdo o derecho. Lo que sí es cierto es que si no lo entendemos pronto vamos a perder el potencial del 50% de la población que vive en el mundo. Y de hecho están poco representadas, como dice esta diapositiva, y ya lo han mostrado mis colegas. Se han realizado, como dice la diapositiva, muchos estudios para explicar este patrón, pero yo he pensado muy profundamente que este patrón está muy adentro de nosotros. Es decir, una de las explicaciones es que las mujeres no son tan competitivas como los hombres y por eso no llegan a cargos tan altos y por eso no son directivas. Esa puede ser una explicación, pero otra explicación puede ser que posiblemente los hombres que están en cargos directivos también piensan que las mujeres no quieren estar ahí y es posible que sí quieran, es posible que un poco más de ayudita en la casa con los niños, suena absurdo, ¿cierto? Pero como yo soy matemática puedo decirlo acá, nos permita encontrar ese equilibrio. Entonces la red pues reconoce todas estas actividades y además resalta algunas de ellas que son un poco traídas de los cabellos. Yo no sé si conocen esto, perdón, que sale en la diapositiva, que es una frase del premio Nobel Sir Tim Hunt. Él es premio Nobel en Ciencias Biológicas y dijo algo que está ahí, déjenme decirles sobre mi problema con las chicas. 3 cosas suceden cuando están en el laboratorio: te enamoras de ellas, ellas se enamoran de ti y cuando se las critica lloran. Y entonces por esta frase, pues a él le tocó retirarse, pedir excusas, retirarse de la Academia Inglesa de Ciencias, pero finalmente era algo que había vivido porque se había enamorado de su esposa en el laboratorio, cosa que puede ser cierta, pero yo no entiendo por qué es motivo de vergüenza. Eso no debe ser motivo de vergüenza. Y a nosotras mismas como mujeres a veces nos da pena admitir que lloramos más fácil, que vamos al laboratorio y de pronto nos maquillamos y nos ponemos tacones y que no tenemos que vestirnos como hombres para poder hablar con los hombres. Y los hombres pues obviamente tienen que entender que están hablando con mujeres. O sea, la situación es una situación pues de género. Una mujer que gana el premio Nobel en matemáticas, que tal vez pues sea un ejemplo a seguir. Bueno, ella decidió trabajarle fuerte. En Colombia hay varias actividades que nos han llevado desde hace muchos años a resaltar el papel de la mujer, la aprobación del voto femenino, una red de mujeres físicas reunidas, lo cual cuando se tomó la foto, que fue la presidenta de la red, yo creo que esto fue hace como 20 años, los movimientos femeninos eran algo extraño. En este momento hay una red de mujeres científicas en el mundo entero, en ciencias biológicas, en matemáticas, en física, y encontrarse con esto a mí me ha causado una cierta inquietud, pero por otro lado me ha permitido pensar que el estar en red nos permite reafirmarnos como científicos o científicas, ¿cierto? Para después podernos comunicar con los otros, es podernos reconocer y yo creo, contestando la pregunta de Alicia, so I think that the mathematician threshold or la red de matemáticas will be so important thing to do in Latin America because the Latin American women are different from the European women, from the US women. So I think that we need to recognize ourselves as really Latin America women with our responsibilities, with our men, with our society, con nuestros gobiernos, con nuestras políticas, porque la situación de las mujeres latinoamericanas es diferente. Y entonces la situación de las científicas latinoamericanas es diferente. ¿Qué estamos haciendo nosotros en forma interesante? Entonces es visibilizar a las mujeres científicas de las Américas, participando en la recolección de información de las mujeres y haciendo actividades en las diferentes universidades para poder empoderar a las mujeres. Estas son fotos de un poco las actividades que se hacen y sobre todo a las niñas en los colegios para que estudien carreras STEM y puedan sentirse identificadas con las matemáticas. So I think that we don't have more time.
Okay.
So thank you, Alicia.
Thank you. Okay, as I told you, we would like to hear what you would like to ask or say, but we just have 5 minutes. But the journalists were able to record 3 questions from 3 people in the Congreso, so I would like to listen to these questions if we can, and maybe they can give some quick answers.
Hola, mi nombre es Araceli, vengo de la Universidad de los Andes en Bogotá y quisiera preguntarle a las conferencistas cómo se han visto beneficiadas desde que pertenecen a las redes de mujeres matemáticas en Latinoamérica.
Okay, I think the main benefit is to meet each other, because we've met each other through these sort of networks, and share experiences basically, so that we don't feel so alone in this kind of environment where sometimes we feel excluded because of some reasons, and even more included because of the reasons, because in a sense we're different. And I think like sharing these experiences among us, it's very good, and it just makes us feel support, and the fact that it's a Latin American thing, it's extremely good for all of us. But I think that's basically the benefit, like finding support in our peers.
Okay, ¿podemos oír la segunda?
Mi nombre es Erika Ortegón, yo vengo a la Universidad Sergio Arboleda y mi pregunta para las mujeres matemáticas es ¿qué problemas están tratando actualmente y qué están haciendo para incentivar específicamente en Colombia la generación de estudios matemáticos en mujeres?
Do you have any further question? Maybe we answer that. You want to say something?
Hello. So I am not mathematics, but our activities are to go into the schools and to organize some activities into the universities, so the Andes, Javeriana, and national universities, to invite the students from the secondary and to show them that the study of mathematics and physics and some of the STEM professions are really important for the construction of a society more sensitive and more creative and equal society.
¿Qué tal? Mi nombre es Jesús Espinosa, vengo de la Universidad del Papaloapan de México. Mi pregunta para las conferencistas es ¿cuáles son las principales dificultades que han tenido para desarrollar una carrera en la academia, en ciencias o en matemáticas?
I just want to steal a second to reply again to the previous question, not
Okay.
again, a different answer. I just wanted to say that we have a Gender and Equality Commission in the Mexican Mathematical Society. See, we do have some activities similar to the Colectivo of Matemáticas Chilenas, and it's basically a network of mathematicians for female and male mathematicians who are interested in these subjects. So, they can ask us questions, and we have some workshops similar to the Chilean ones. And in terms of the last question, just to acknowledge it, well, the greatest difficulty is math. Math is hard.
For everybody, men and women.
Yeah, I would like to say something about the last question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to try to answer in English. If not, I'm going to switch in Spanish. Because I forgot to say something when I start to talk about this kind of scale of prestige of the disciplines. So one explanation for this, one explanation for why women choose to go to this less prestigious discipline is not just the fact that it's not just a question of interest, it's not maybe behind this, it's a question of lack of confidence. So one of the things that you realize when you start to talk with women working in mathematics or in physics or in any very demanding field is that they used to have they used to suffer of a kind of lack of confidence. And I just like something anecdotic. Last Friday in France, in the Institute of Henri Poincaré, it was organized something, a conference. The name of the conference is the Journée Parité, so a conference about the equity in mathematics. And this was organized by the Association of Women Mathematicians in France. And one of the talks was given by a psychologist. And the subject of this talk was the imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome is just the people who are working in a field, they are recognized by their peers, but they always feel that they are not good enough to be in this field. And it seems that this is very common among the women who works in very demanding fields like mathematics. So I think it's very important when you start to talk with another woman or with another people of this kind of stuff, because you recognize that maybe this is not something that happened just to you. This is something more general, and maybe you have more tools to try to solve this.
Yeah, I think these are also very general things that pertain to math, but also to many other disciplines or activities. So you need to focus a lot. And focus on a problem and forget about what's around is not something you like in a woman in a society. You're not supposed to focus and not pay attention to anything else. For a male, this is, oh, he's great, he's so focused. For a woman, no, we say that we like to pay attention to everything, but you're expected to do that. We are not expect, this is not what, and then we behave like this. There are many, what I would like to end with what I started, there are many structural things in the societies that produce what we see.